I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, at our age, you start thinking about those things too. I heard Don Wesley passed away,
He did.
and
Very unexpected.
I think he died in his sleep, from what I heard. And my wife and I were talking. She said, "That's how I want to go," but we don't have a whole lot of choice in that. So, okay. Well, mine is on. It's good to see you. Mine is on. I've got the video going. Okay. And this is my stuff here. I'll put it down here out of the way. I have more junk than I need. Three minutes.
Nothing else. I mean, this is successful. He was successful in that and start and end on time no matter what else.
I will. Yeah, I got 3 minutes. And I'm going to stand up, and then they'll sit down.
The other thing that I found is the key to a successful event is you have to pick the right lunch, which is a fool's errand.
That
You can
is
never do that. And
that is hard to do.
that's why you always get somebody else to pick what's for lunch. in the
Yeah.
conference. Don't do it.
Yes, that is Tom. I'm not Tom. That is. I'm Randy. I'll just wait back here, and then at the appointed time, I'll walk up and I'll walk up, and you can turn my mic up, and we'll be ready to go. And you can. It's interesting to watch the politicians in the room shaking hands and yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, hold it. Okay, how are we doing here? 1 minute to go. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Glad to have you all here. Oh, right, there he is. I think it's 7 o'clock. It's the appointed hour for us to begin. So, first order of business, ask you to mute your telephone. Pull it out and pull down the thing and mute it, or do not disturb, so that we don't interrupt these important people. My name is Randy Bretz, and I was asked to moderate this evening, and so I'll do my best job to do that. And I just want to say thank you for all of you who are here tonight. This is a really good crowd. And online we have about another 50 or so. And you know, in a democracy, one of the key civic responsibilities we have is to learn about the candidates so we can be informed voters when we vote for them to run the city and the state and the nation and whatever. In the April 8th primary election, we will have an opportunity to select 2 candidates for each of the 3 open seats for City Council. That's on April 8th. And then on May 6th, we'll vote for the final person to sit in that council seat. We have 3 at-large City Council representatives in the city of Lincoln. We have all 8 of the 9 here. I'm sure Stan's going to show up in a minute. I'll introduce them in just a moment. This evening's candidate forum is being sponsored by a dozen groups that have come together under a banner of preserving our environment and protecting our environment. In fact, those 8 people, those 8 organizations are listed on your program, and there they are up on the screen as well. So let's give them a round of applause. So thank you. Just a few things to kind of set the stage. First of all, each candidate will open with a personal introduction. We'll give them about a minute to do that. The focus on this forum is primarily on the environment and issues related to the environment and challenges that we face. I have a few questions that have been prepared by the organizations ahead of time, and we'll begin the questions with one of those, maybe a couple of those. But folks, you're here to interact, and the way we ask you to interact is if you're online, use the chat function to submit a question. And we have people that are monitoring those questions, and we'll put them together and we'll ask the candidates. And for those of you who are seated, you should have all gotten a card when you came in. We ask you to write your question on that card and then hold it up, and the runner will pick it up. Or if it's Ken Winston, he might just be a slow walker. But I'm sorry, Ken, that was a cheap joke. I had to do that for a little. But he'll pick it up, and then they'll bring them up, and we'll ask those questions. We're going to do our best to consider a variety of questions from people. But keep in mind, we still only have 8, but 9 will probably be here. And if each one takes a minute to a minute and a half to answer, that takes up quite a bit of time, and we have an hour and a half to do that this evening. I do ask that you be polite as you hear them share what they, in response to their questions. Listen to understand, because that's our job as people in the city, is listening to understand so we can cast a good vote. And we do have somebody watching the clock, and she's sitting right here. And folks, she's going to hold up some numbers. You all can read numbers, I know. You're all intelligent people. And 30 seconds and stop. So that'll give you a warning that time for you to do that. So one more thing. Following the formal part of the program this evening, I think just right around the corner we'll have an informal time. I believe some people made some cookies, and there might be some coffee or tea or water or whatever. But it'll be a chance if the candidates want to stay and interact with you in an informal way, or for you to clarify a question or two. So now, what I'd like to do, and you may, for those of you who in the room are astute, you've noticed that they're in alphabetical order by last name. This is like grade school, but no comment on the quality of the candidates. But we put them in alphabetical order. And grade A, okay. All right, we already have. I'm the stand-up comedian here. Will you hold it down, please? Okay. But I'll ask them to introduce, take a minute now and just say who they are and a word or two. And the guys running the sound system said to be sure to hold the mic up close to your mouth like this. And the microphones are all on, so just pick it up. And if you would share the mic, it would be nice. So we'll start with you. We'll start with you, Tom Beckius.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Tom Beckius, and I currently serve on the Lincoln City Council. Just finishing up my first term, and I'm excited about the possibility of a second term. Previous to being a city council member, I was a Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commissioner for 5 years. And previous to that, I have served in various volunteer governance capacities with the City of Lincoln since 2009, including serving on our library board, serving on the Community Health Endowment, and oh gosh, I already have 30 seconds left. I apologize. Born and raised here in Lincoln. Lincoln's my hometown, and I don't really consider myself much of a politician, but maybe rather a policymaker. And this is my way of giving back to the community that I love. I'm married. I have one stepdaughter. My husband's name is John. And I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm running out of time again. But thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rene Carrillo. I moved to Lincoln in 2002. Spent half of my life in Hobbs, New Mexico, oil town, pretty much West Texas, but it was New Mexico. Moved here, went to school to become a teacher. Quickly realized that I probably wasn't going to be too happy with the debt I was incurring, so I felt like changing careers. Fell into electricity. Do low voltage for Commonwealth Electric. I'm with the IBEW 265 union. Low voltage foreman now. I am really heavily involved in the union there. I'm on the executive board. I am the registrar for the union, so I kind of make sure that all of our members are registered to vote and they're aware of what policies are going through and what's coming up in election, things like that. Last 4 years, I've been working with Lincoln DSA. That is the Democratic Socialists of America, the Lincoln chapter. Got in touch with them around Bernie Sanders' campaign. And yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Majee Miller Jenkins. It looks like Maggie on paper, so when you choose to vote for me, I'm the only one with a hyphenated last name. My background is in service, so I have a degree from Kaplan in Human Services, and I've applied that to the best of my ability during my lifetime. I have 15 years working in the disability services, so I was a direct support professional for about 15 years, and then I also worked as a paraeducator for Lincoln Public Schools. Had my daughter, I've got 3 kids, and when I had my daughter, I decided to be a stay-at-home mom and use all of my time to serve the people. So over the last 5 years, that's what I've done. 24-hour, 7-day-a-week mutual aid services. I volunteer for numerous different entities across Lincoln. I volunteer with We Can Do This, We Feed Children, who's backed by Susan Brown through the F Street Rec Center and the Belmont Community Center. But I guess that's just my time and a little bit about me. So thanks for getting to know me.
All right, I needed bullet points, that way I can get to the point. My name is Dr. Elena Newman. I've been living in Lincoln actually since 1993. My family immigrated here from the USSR to actually escape communism and genocide. I am married. I have a 17 going on 30-year-old daughter, and I have a 4-year-old fur baby. My educational attainment has been centered around psychology, sociology, and the healthcare industry, primarily pharmacy. I'm also an educator and involved in various local volunteer efforts. I'm a healthcare worker and a small business owner. And when I still have a few minutes to spare, my husband and I are competitive ballroom dancers who, with our ballroom family, volunteer our time performing at various assisted living and community centers in town. I consider myself to be the product of the American dream. I'm a knowledge seeker. I'm a critical thinker. I love to ask a lot of questions. I'm sorry to those who are elected alongside of me. I love building organic, time-tested connections that aim to build a foundation upon which we can discuss pressing, complex issues. Thank you.
This work? Hello? Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you. My name is Benny Shobe. as Mr. Bretz is going to help me with, I grew up in a place called Kentucky, and I moved to Nebraska in '98, and I'm a Nebraskan by choice.
That's right.
I know many of you in the room. We've crossed paths. We've had conversations. We've been at the same functions. And that helps me to fulfill my FOMO, my fear of missing out. I learn more when I'm in the community with you, and I enjoy that. And I've been doing that for the last 2 terms as your city council person. I'd love to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jerry Shoecraft. I'm a former Lincoln City Councilman. I served from 1993 to 2001. The Lord made me walk the desert for 20 years, and then he put me back in the game. My campaign is about there's so much more we can do. First thing we have to realize that Lincoln is no longer a small town. We have 333,000 people in our zip code. So there's some pressing issues that our community must face. I want to introduce innovative solutions to some of those pressing issues, push for the correct software of adaptive traffic signal controls, in-flare technology to fix our potholes that'll last 2 to 3 years versus 6 months, fiscal responsibility, leadership, and move our city progressively forward. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Sandra Washington. Presently, I serve on the Lincoln City Council. I'm chair right now. Prior to being on City Council, which I've done for 6 years, I was a planning commissioner with the Lincoln Lancaster Planning Commission. Before that, I was actively involved in my career with the National Park Service. That career gave me an opportunity to learn a little about a lot of things, pardon me. So I trained in natural resources, environmental analysis, field ecology, and planning. And I've been able to use my analytic skills and my planning skills to help move Lincoln forward on the Planning Commission and on City Council. And I love to do homework. I love to dig deep into policy, and I love to listen. Please consider electing me for another term.
Hi, my name is Aurangzeb. I go by Zeb. I'm originally from Sialkot, Pakistan. If you play soccer, this made from my city. So I moved here 2003, November 24 night. So why I remember this date, because my wife, she from here. After I get married, we moved to Maryland. But before Thanksgiving, she told me she have to go back to see her family. If you did not move with me, you get divorced. So I moved here to get scared from my wife. So that's why I'm here. I never move anywhere else. So I'm running for city council. I ran before a few times, but I did not win. So I like to serve people. I'm very friendly. So if you have any question after this one, you can ask me. Sorry, my throat is too dry because I'm fasting. I'm by religion, by Muslim. So I have to my breakfast 7:37 tonight. I maybe leave for 5 minutes, but I come back. So thank you, please. I'm asking your vote. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for the first question, and I'll turn right back to you, Thomas. And we'll begin with the first question, which is, oh, by the way, if you folks have questions you'd like to ask, I see one right here. So jump up there, Ken. Our runner will pick them up and collate them, and we'll do our best to get to them. The first question is, Mr. Beckius, how is climate change impacting residents of Lincoln? And what would you do in the next 4 years to educate more residents on the need for climate action and encourage their support? And I'll give you about a minute and a half.
Thank you, Randy. So I think that the impacts that we're seeing in the city of Lincoln are not unlike the impacts that we're seeing across the entire world. Storms becoming stronger, storms becoming less predictable and faster. One thing that I really worry about is our long-term infrastructure and how that can be resilient against additional climate change. Especially when it comes to flooding. I think that flooding is a real risk in our community. Even though we have a pretty good program in place for flooding, we probably need a more resilient plan further down the road. So what does that look like? Not to jump ahead with questions, but I think funding is going to be limited going forward. So I think we have to go back to basics and really pump up our programs when it comes to collaboration with, it's great to see so many collaborators come together for this forum, but we need to continue those collaborations and build them stronger. That includes additional collaborations with our educational systems to make sure that young people coming up understand the impacts of climate change and how we can become a more resilient community to them, making sure that curriculum continues in our community about climate change and its impact, because I'm fearful that could be changing in the near term, and making sure that our educational system remains intact when it comes to climate change. I apologize, my stop sign has come up, so.
Yeah, I also agree that funding will be a concern for this. I believe that the weather patterns have changed. We have been faced with drought across Nebraska. That is going to affect us flooding when we do get the rains that come. The ground's going to crack open. It's going to allow for more water just to flow free, so we need to be aware of that. I think the city's done a pretty good job with Antelope Creek came in. That helped out a whole lot. I think we can keep doing more of that. And then I also agree that education is probably key to help elevating people's awareness of such things. And then just maybe come up with different ways to attack and help curb some of our emissions, ways to maybe do that without creating more waste that could be also afflicting us. Electric cars are great, but batteries might be a problem. So if we attack that beforehand before we jump on doing that, that'll help with some of the other problems that might arise. So I think if we do collaborate as much as we can with everyone and get a better feel for what other problems could arise out of certain things that we do, that would just benefit us in the long run.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
The question is, what did I do with it? How is climate change impacting residents of Lincoln? And what would you do the next 4 years to educate more residents of the need for climate action and encourage their support?
As a future city council member, I would utilize our rec centers as hubs for disseminating information to our youth. Lincoln owns the city of Lincoln is involved with multiple community centers across Lincoln, and I think that those would be amazing places to be able to interact with the youth to make sure that education is free-flowing and continuous. I definitely think that climate is something, the climate crisis is going to impact us all and already has been. We were all here on Wednesday when that rando blizzard just blew through and smacked us all in the face, right? Our unhoused citizens are at risk of death from moments like that. The harsher the winters are, the longer the winters are, the harsher the summers are, the longer the summers are. Yes, it's going to affect our crops. Yes, it's going to affect our infrastructure. But I really, with my time, I would like to focus on the human toll of all of the decisions that people make. Human lives are going to be lost. And if we do not do preemptive steps to ensure that our unhoused and our impoverished citizens are taken care of, they'll die. We will lose people, and those are people's daughters, their aunts, their uncles, their sons. So a lot of what I'm focusing on with the climate crisis is going to be the human toll and what I can do to be able to mitigate that human toll for Lincolnites and hopefully making a blueprint for greater good.
Okay. So I decided to take a different approach with this, and anytime I talk to people, I ask them, like, what are the things that you're concerned about? And honestly, not a single person has told me that climate is what they're concerned about. A lot of times what people are concerned about are the spending, the roads, the taxes. They're concerned about paying rent, groceries, their health. But as an educator, I love to educate. So education piece is really important. Public awareness piece to any issue and every issue is important. I would love to see more data. I would love to see various groups on both sides of the argument come together and agree on something. I think you're going to get a lot more support if you can have people come to a consensus and figure out like 5 or 6 things that we can focus on and focus on those things. That being said, we have to be responsible for the resources that we have. So there are little things we can do. Like, for example, LES used to have the little blurb on the bottom of their bill, lower the thermostat by 1 degree, save X amount of dollars. Lincoln Water System can do the same thing. My husband and I just got a smart thermostat, and one of the things we had to consent, or had an option to consent to, is to have LES give them the option to lower our thermostat by 1 degree in times when the usage is high. I think that's a great idea. Another thing is we can have community workshops. I would love to see a community science fair. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wow. I'm going to do a little quick story. I grew up in Kentucky, and I moved here in the fall of '98. And this would be a harsh winter day in Kentucky. You're outside right now. We don't have winter there. And then in end of March, middle of March, we had this huge snowstorm. I go, what the hell is this? And everybody said, oh, it's state basketball tournament time. This will be the last snowfall of the year. Well, that was last week, and we had another snowfall this week. Those are the signs that our climate is changing. We at the city, we passed a climate action plan a few years ago, and we've implemented steps from that. There are about 118 options available. Some are new, some are continuing. I think we need to do a better job of explaining to the rest of our friends that live here in Lincoln, all the residents of Lincoln, there are options, there are small things they can do that will positively affect climate change. And we just need to do more talking, more time together, finding those things that we can do to contribute to making this a less onerous problem.
Lincoln's climate action plan is very important. Federal funding is going to be limited, so we as a community need to do our part. One of the great projects that existing right now the city is involved with is the Bluff Road Landfill Waste Emissions Project, which we're turning that into renewable natural gas. My personal opinion, the revenue that we receive from that should go for property tax release, but that's a different discussion another day. You know, nitrates and contaminants that are in our water is very harmful. Lincoln, the state of Nebraska, is one that has the highest rate for pediatric cancer in children. And one of the factors is nitrates. It's not all blamed on the farmers and the ranchers, but that is a serious issue that we're facing. Wastewater, animal waste that's going into the water, soil contamination, pesticide, herbicides, then it affects your irrigation system, and then it affects your water resources. So we all have to take a part in this, and I'm pushing for a de facto East Beltway, and I'm thinking this Beltway will have a less environmental impact than the proposed $550 million impact Beltway. I'm seeking federal funding with the state senators for an environmental impact study so we can brush off those plans from 1996 and we can protect farmsteads, homesteads, wild species from that environmental impact study. Thank you.
I'm very proud that Lincoln has a climate action plan, and as Councilman Shob said, there are about 118 actions on that. We started with over 600 strategies that were generated by dozens and dozens of Lincoln residents who sat in a room day after day and came up with these ideas. Many of those actions don't require council or new ordinances. There are things that that departments can do, but there are about 24 that do, and we've made really good progress. I think that when we look at climate change in Lincoln and how it's affecting Lincoln right now, the things that concern me are water and heat. Councilman Beckius down there started with floods, and we have two kinds of flooding in Lincoln. The ones that we're most familiar with are the ones when Salt Creek rises. The other ones are called urban flooding, and that's when the underpass under 48th floods out and we can't drive underneath it. And those are issues that we can deal with stormwater, and thank you for voting for the stormwater bond. Heat, is another problem. As we get warmer, our neighborhoods get warmer, and heat islands tend to exist in neighborhoods with lower socioeconomics, and it's an equity issue. And so we need to be thinking about how we can resolve heat islands.
Climate change is already affecting Lincoln through increased extreme weather events, heavier rainfall leading to the flooding, and raising a summer temperature that puts stress on infrastructures and vulnerable population. Over the next 4 years, I will support community education effort by expecting outreach program, collaborating with local school and organizations, and ensure residents understand both the economic and environment benefit of the climate action. Encouraging energy efficiency, promoting suitable practice, and making a climate action accessible to all residents will be key priorities. Thank you.
Okay, our second question was prepared by some of the participants that sponsored this event. And this is, what are your thoughts about establishing, Renee, ask you to begin the responses, establishing buffers of Lincoln's natural resources such as Wilderness Park and 9 Mile Prairie and Prairie Pines, either through purchase or planning amendment to protect them from residential and commercial encroachment. So Renee?
Yeah, I live really close to Wilderness Park, and I love that thing. I love riding my bike through there or taking walks. I think the best way would be to safeguard those through policy, and maybe look at other options if people who are wanting to develop those areas. We got to find them different places because those are natural resources that we probably need to maintain as such and not encroach them with development. They just help us feel better about ourselves to go touch grass, you know, like it's a way to get out in nature but still close to home. So I would be for stopping encroachment with policy.
Maggie?
I would absolutely support putting up buffer zones that would include Wilderness Ridge and other key points throughout the Lincoln-Lancaster area. I would definitely be a solid no vote when it came to the opinion of rezoning those areas. So if elected and those did pop up as a development company wanted to come and try to rezone it, bringing our attention to the Manzito brothers and what happened with Snell Hill. That was an indigenous holy site. It wasn't just a natural resource area. That was a space where our indigenous brothers and sisters were on their land. And we took away one of their holy sites in order for somebody to develop a building that they say is affordable, but I argue affordable to who? How much is that going to be? And so if I had been a city council member at that time, my vote would have been no. And if elected and issues like that come up in the future, my vote will be no, because I will reflect the fact that I value our green spaces. In our plan 2050, we made a promise to protect green spaces. The mayor made a promise, our city council members made a promise, and in my opinion, that was an instance where they failed. And I can promise that that will not be a moment of failure for my tenure in the city council.
Okay. So I live right on Highway 77. So my husband and I will go through the green areas. We'll ride our bikes down the various paths, and it's a good opportunity for us.
Questions in order. Okay.
I believe you said it's like the idea of touching grass, being one with nature. So I can say that many citizens, as I talk to various constituents, they're not happy about all the apartments that are going up. And at times, we're getting rid of green areas to build apartments. And so This creates an inconsistency and it's really confusing. If we're going to value parks and we're going to value green spaces, then we probably should keep the parks and keep the green spaces the way they are. So I'm a person of my word, and I keep a promise if I make it. And so if I say I'm going to keep a green space, we're going to keep the green space a green space.
This is a great, challenging question. We did a forum earlier today, and a lot of the topics centered on housing. What are you going to do to develop more housing? And that butts up against barriers in green spaces. As a member of the city council, many of us will be elected and go, and we'll have to do those challenges. How do we balance the difference between providing housing and protecting green space? And it's not a win-lose, it's kind of a lose-lose, win-win all over the place. And we usually have long conversations about that. We discuss the merits of green spaces. We discuss the merits of housing. We discuss the property rights of the property owners. We discuss the values that our community has and holds. As a member of your city council, I'm going to spend time with you hearing what you have to say and taking those back to those conversations. It's not always going to be fun or pretty, but we need to have those conversations, and we need to do what is good for our community long term. Thank you.
As we move to development in South Lincoln near the South Beltway, buffer zones and thinking about conservation easements are going to be very important. The environmental impact study that I hope to come about as we think about it, East Beltway, will address a lot of issues with respect to buffer zones, protecting farmsteads, homesteads, wild species. Parks and trails are very important to me. Green space is very important to me. That's what makes Lincoln very beautiful. But there has to be a balance, there has to be compromise, and there has to be have everybody have a seat at the table to address this important issue. Thank you.
I'm willing to say that the decision that was made with Wilderness Ridge next to Wilderness Park was a mistake. I voted in the wrong. I voted in the right way. I was the minority vote. I was the only council person who voted that way. I asked for a delay. I asked for more environmental studies. I've been working with Menzito. No, you're taking my time up. I'm so sorry. I sat down with Menzito and come up with a number of suggestions for how they might be able to make that development just a little bit more conservation friendly. At the end of the day, I think we can see that even small issues like that can have really big impacts, and we should have gone a different way. With that said, I do support buffers around natural areas. We have a wonderful comprehensive plan. I know it's thick and it's sometimes hard to read, but we have already outlined things that we said are special and important to us. We've had hundreds and hundreds of citizens weigh in and say, this place is valuable to me and this place is valuable. I do think we need to take a look at cultural sites as well as natural sites so that we really encompass all of the values that we treasure here, and that we work with developers, we work with private landowners, we work with the planning department, urban development, to come up with the right kinds of development tools that protect those places. And it may mean that we have to purchase. I'm not asking anybody to give up their property rights. We need to be ready to put our money where our mouth is and purchase those property rights so that we can preserve those lands forever.
Lincoln Natural Space, such a Wilderness Park and 9 Mile Perry, are invaluable to our environment, reaction, and biodiversity. I support establishing protective buffer either through land purchase or planning amendment to prevent overdevelopment and preserve these areas for future generation. Responsible growth should include conservation planning to maintain the city green space while meeting housing and infrastructure needs. Thank you.
Randy, I'm
Oh.
sorry. I apologize. One more.
Yeah. Sure, I thought we were done.
It's time to codify some of this work. That's what's really important, because what we experienced with the Wilderness Crossing project was an applicant who came forward with an application who was following the rules, and then we didn't like the rules, right? So what we need to do is actually codify this work, because when we have an application in front of us, that's not the time to say, oh, we're changing the rules, right? So I support buffers. I support easement conservation between these things. I agree with Chair Washington that we may have to put our money where our mouth is and buy these buffers, right? Because as she stated, and I agree with her, we don't necessarily want to take someone's land and put a buffer on there, unless we can do things like consider other items that we can put in that buffer space. For example, could detention cells go in that space? Would that be an acceptable solution? Or do we offer density bonuses to developers who adhere to a buffer space? Because there is a financial consideration there. But we do need to work to make sure that the next time that we have a development that occurs next to an area that we want to protect, that we're not complaining about that issue during the development process or the hearing. We need to codify this stuff up front so that everyone knows what the rules are to play by.
Okay, we have a question now, Maggie, for you to begin the response. In light of the current federal actions eliminating and weakening environmental funding and regulations and support, how would you work to maintain the progress that Lincoln has made and continues to need to do into the future?
It's a great question. I would say that the first step would be to start working in earnest with the mutual aid efforts that are currently in action right now inside of our city. Personally, I have witnessed over 100 people a week being fed free meals every week. And so the fact that we have a systemic issue is proved positive inside of the work that I do, but is going to be exacerbated by all of the cuts that we are going to be experiencing. So I would probably start reaching out to local people and seeing what people are willing to do. I am very much a believer that human beings want to help. We want to be good people. We want to do for our community. We want to do for others. So when federal funding falls off, because eventually the court cases are going to level themselves out one way or another, and in the in-between, that is millions of people that will be starving. So I very much believe that we can work with the established entities that are already here and then encouraging new programs, like maybe removing statutes about where you can and can't grow fruit trees, encouraging more growing opportunities for different land plots. There's a lot of ways that an individual can help with the impact that we are all going to be feeling. And whether elected or not, I will be in the community doing the work because it's important for all of us.
Elena, would you like me to repeat the question, or did you get it? In light of the current federal actions eliminating and weakening environmental funding and regulations and support, how would you work to maintain the progress Lincoln has made and continues to need into the future?
So some things that were already mentioned is addressing some of the regs. I think that's one of the biggest ways, is addressing some of the regulations that are in place. Incentives always work to get people excited about something, to help them do a little, give them a little reward for what they're doing. I will say people are struggling right now. Going back, my degree is in psychology. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have basic needs that we need to address first: food, shelter, water, safety, love, and then at the very top is self-actualization. So the things that we're talking about are more on the self-actualization piece. There are people that are driven to do things, but they may be limited because their other needs are not being met. Are you going to feed your family, or are you going and go to work to feed your family, or are you going to take time off and volunteer and not get paid for that opportunity? So we have a lot of talent in this community. I think we need to have conversations. We need to get people together and actually have conversations, kind of like we're having now, except, you know, we're the ones that giving ideas. We would like some feedback too. But having conversations and having respectful conversations, understanding that everybody's opinion is important, and taking some actionable steps. A few things that we can do together as a community.
Let me repeat it. Yes, please. The question, in light of the current federal actions eliminating and weakening environmental funding, regulations, and support, how would you work to maintain the progress Lincoln has made and continues to need into the future?
Yes, federal funding is going to be questionable. There were lots of grants issued in the last 4 years, and there's some of that money is still available to us. I know the state has a nice plan, and they have some money, and they're going to do some things in the future. But a lot of the things we can do on an individual level and at the city level, we can do without federal funding. They might not be Hail Mary type blows, but there'll be small things we can do as a community to make the situation better. As Elena has said many times, we need a lot more education. That really doesn't require federal funding. Today, the mayor had a press conference talking about growing local food, and we're going to change an ordinance where people can grow food in their personal gardens and sell to the community. So there might be people who find a great passion in growing a vegetable or a fruit, those fruit trees you talked about in New York, yeah, and be able to sell those to the community. Federal funding is great, but Nebraska has this history of being independent thinking and self-supportive, and that hardy Nebraska, we can do it ourselves mentality. I think that'll go a long way.
One of the important factors that's part of the climate action plan is to educate us and give us a target of how we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is very important. We understand that federal funding will be limited, so we need to get a little bit creative if we want to continue this. So I'd be willing to give up a little bit of the revenue from the Bluffs Road renewable natural gas sales and help fund this. Let's look at gaming revenue. There's a possibility of using gaming revenue to continue this as well. So they're very important issues. I mean, we have E. coli issues and that are very serious in this community, especially from animal waste washing down through a stream. There's so many air pollutants, people getting permits to burn grass. That contributes to the problem. Carbon rays, I mean, I can go on and on about all these important issues, and we as a community have to continue to be cognizant of this and communicate and find innovative ways to continue this plan if federal funding is not there. Thank you.
I really appreciate the question. I think that when we look out at what's happening nationally right now, we could start to shake in our shoes a little bit and lose hope. But as my colleagues down the table have said, a lot of the work that we can do does not require federal funding. Yes, it's wonderful to have some of those grants. Some of those grants are on pause, and we're gonna get them. Some we know we're gonna keep, and some we're probably gonna lose. And we've heard about one or two that we know are gonna stop. But that doesn't mean that we need to stop our movement toward our goals. We have standards that we can hold on to, even if the EPA isn't there telling us that we have to have clean water. We are still capable of cleaning our water, and I don't think we have to make a change in that. We shouldn't have to lower our standards. So I'm not without a lot of hope that we are blessed to live in Lincoln, where public-private partnerships are how we get big things done. It's not just the city who does something. It's not just the business community. This is something that we know how to do. We know how to work with the universities, Southeast Community College, the public schools, the city, the county, the state, and the business community to get big projects done. And I'm not worried that we won't be successful.
Nope.
Same question.
Oh, let me repeat it for you, sir. In light of current federal actions eliminating and weakening environmental funding, regulations, and support, how would you work to maintain the progress that Lincoln has made and continues to need to make in the future?
With federal grant become less available, Lincoln must seek alternative funding sources for climate initiatives. I would explore public-private partnership, state and regional grants, and potential local incentives to encourage business and residents to invest in sustainability. Additionally, leveraging cost-saving initiatives such as energies effect infrastructure upgrade can help free up city fund while reducing long-term expenses. Investing in sustainable solution will pay dividends in the future by lowering operational costs and improving community resilience. Thank you.
Thank you.
A few things that come to my mind when asked this question. Yes, I think that federal and state funding will continue to reduce. So I think not only in climate areas, but across the board. So I think the smart city is the city that can become more resilient more quickly. The city that wants to achieve its own particular goals is the city that's going to be able to find and finance those goals. So when we talk about public-private partnerships, for example, let's talk about Spark Renewables and the work that they're doing on the landfill gas project. That project is slated to make the city of Lincoln money. But let's say in the future, that project doesn't make money for the city of Lincoln. It just breaks even. That's still okay. I think that we still work on things even if our partnerships aren't as fruitful as they used to be. If we can still positively impact climate change, even if we don't make money, we still need to move in that direction. Another thing I wanted to highlight as well is that when we talk about new spending, when we talk about proposals that move into new spending, what that also means is that there's less money to go around for other projects. So when we talk about what we're doing with revenue being generated by landfill gas, is there a possibility of that revenue being reinvested for green projects in our community as opposed to going to other projects? I think those are the questions that we need to answer as a community before we move forward.
The one thing I haven't really heard yet is like seeking help from other communities outside of Lincoln that are also facing the same similar situation. We did talk about the schools like University of Nebraska and Lincoln, SCC. Those are also great options for us to like collaborate and have the work done in-house for some of these things. There are probably other cities that are kind of doing the same thing. If we can get some of that interest from the same groups to help participate and collaborate on those public-private collaborations, that would be an option. We are going to have to get pretty creative, I think, in some aspects to fund some of the stuff that we want to do. But as Tom said, some of the projects that we had in mind were going to either create value for the city or they may not. But in the essence of not actually creating any actual funds, we're still bettering our environment. We're still bettering ourselves. So the city will see improvements in that aspect. Yeah, I don't think I really had anything else to say, so forget it.
Okay, Elaine, it's your turn to begin with the next question. How can we prove the effectiveness and success of public transit and green transit while also improving access to public transit in Lincoln?
This is an interesting one. So as I look at the public transport in general, everybody that I have talked to talks about how long it takes to get from point A to point B. So I think working to create more efficient routes, perhaps, maybe less big buses and more smaller vehicles. That way you can, you may not have to necessarily get a whole bus full. You can have a few vans or a few smaller buses going from point A to point B. But the efficiency piece, I think, is lacking, which is creating hesitancy in using the public transport system. That would be my biggest focus, is to improve the efficiency of what we have so that more people would be, whether they use it all the time, but at least would be willing to try it. I think it's really hard if you're supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock and you have to leave at 5:30, 6 a.m. to go stand at a bus stop, but you have kids that you have to also get to school. So it becomes a logistical problem. And I think my biggest interest, I guess, is to create that efficiency so that we can encourage the use of the public transportation system.
Mr. Shobe, would you like me to repeat it, or you got that?
Yeah,
down?
well, let's
How can we improve effectiveness and success of the public transit and green transit while also improving access to public transit in Lincoln?
thank you for that extra bit of time to think too. Little story. January 17th, I'm driving home in my little 1999 Ford Ranger pickup, and it dies. The alternator goes out on it. I curse for a few minutes. I get it towed home. It sits in front of my apartment, and I have to get around town. So what do? I take StarTran. I took StarTran. I'm a big user of the Star Shuttle right around town to get things going. But as Elena said, I leave an hour early so I could get there on time. And in the morning, there's a large number of riders, mostly people going to their jobs in the morning and go in the afternoon, and the bus runs about every hour on the hour. It's a good system, mostly paid by federal dollars. Our ticket prices on the bus are not paying for it. A lot paid by the university. They pay a big chunk of it because their students use it. But and we have plans to improve it, add more routes. Before COVID, we were getting ready to add a Sunday route. But we're in love with cars in this country, and as long as we're in love with cars, it's going to be difficult to encourage people to ride the bus. We've got to make it more convenient. Higher density will help, but I don't know how we address our love affair with cars and move people to buses. The bus system is a lot of natural gas. We've had electric buses. It's getting more efficient, but it's a culture change, and I'm not sure how we do that.
Lincoln is growing tremendously, and my fear is that we cannot provide adequate public transportation just because of the size of Lincoln. I was out campaigning last week, and I was clear out near Alvo Road, and I didn't even know that neighborhood existed, and I didn't know if you even can have public transportation that far out. It stretches, the size of our city now stretches a lot of our resources when it comes to our first responders. We're moving away from fossil fuel vehicles to electric, which is what the trend seems to be. So I don't have the exact answer of how we're going to improve our public transportation because Lincoln is growing so much.
I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I've heard. I'm going to start with the federal funding. So our ticket pays, the price that people pay to ride the bus pays about 30% the cost of actually providing that service for that individual. So we're underwater if we're not using federal dollars. I do agree that there's a lack of efficiency somewhat in the system, and I know that we have to come downtown. We rely on the single point of transfer, and I'd like us to look at smaller buses that we can be more flexible. I want us to look at multiple hub points and really analyze where people are working, because not everybody's working downtown. A lot of people are working from home, but there's other hub centers where there's employment, and so I'd like to see if there's a way for us to run multiple transfer points, not just the single downtown point. And the one thing that I'm actually hoping goes away from the federal government is Federal Transit Agency, the FTA's rule that prohibited us creating that special route for kids to get to middle school and high school, and they made us stop that. And it made it harder for kids to get to school. And if we don't have FTA money, maybe we won't have to follow that rule. We can go back and create the Lincoln solution that worked for Lincoln, and LPS will be able to put the money back into the system that they had been. It really was working well for students.
Can you repeat your question, please?
How can we improve effectiveness and success of our public transit and green transit while also improving access to public transit in Lincoln?
Okay, I will start with the one little bit funny story. I moved here from Virginia, Maryland area, Washington, D.C. area. So they have the best metro stations and train. When I moved here, I used to live 17 and Old Cheney. So I decided to take a bus to go to Cornhusker, North First Street, to go to prayer at my mosque. So this took me all day because I took a bus to 11th and O Street. Then I have to wait a bus maybe 1-2 hours to get to go other North First Street. It took me all day. So when I come back, my wife say, "That's why I told you, you need to have your own car in this town. You can't think this is Washington, D.C., where you go anywhere and have a bus every 10 minutes. So we need to approve this one. And if we have money, what I like to do, have a own metro train around the Lincoln so people can go easily anywhere. That's my thought. If we have money, we can do next this one. Thank you.
Bear with me here. I don't think our solution is necessarily a short-term solution. I think one of the greatest things that we can do to improve public transit in the city of Lincoln is to actually look at our zoning and density. I think that if we were to redevelop the city in ways that allow for density clusters, we would have people more incentivized to use a bus system naturally. For example, you may have noticed a few weeks ago that the city of Lincoln took under consideration, and the city council recently approved or will approve rezoning for the 56th and O Street area to allow more residential housing there. And I saw Mary here somewhere. Hi. And I think that we need to build upon those neighborhoods that we can add additional residential uses in order to create the kind of density that we need to have people continue to use public transportation in a major way. That also means that we need to look at our commercial centers, our employment centers, and try to cluster them around as well. Now, naturally, that also has a whole lot of other benefits too, whether we're talking about reduced road infrastructure, higher and better usage of our existing water and sewer lines that would also, of course, lower our tax levy as well if we're using these resources more efficiently. But I think we need to go further upstream in order to solve our problem with public transportation, and I think that revolves around zoning.
Public transit is one of our top priorities as the Lincoln Omaha Municipal Alliance. One of the things that our alliance would like to eventually tackle is transportation from Lincoln to Omaha back and forth 3 times a day. Started off maybe a bus route that would be provided to the people, that eventually we would love to see a rail. My envision of the rail would be from South Lincoln, south of Saltillo, get some of the Roca people that like to come to Lincoln, get them a path around to Lincoln and then eventually go through the smaller towns in between Lincoln and Omaha. Public transit as it is now for StarTran, a lot of the people that I spoke to when I was knocking doors, they don't like that there's no way to track the buses. They will get to their stop and the bus has already left. Like a bus got there early and they didn't know and they're sitting there waiting forever because the bus that they were planning to take is already gone. So if there's a way to track these buses for the people that use them frequently, that would be a great improvement. I think people on this panel here have made up great solutions to offer different opportunities or different pathways, different bus types. Giving more hubs would be an excellent solution to like make it a little easier to transport people around town. So yeah, that would be my suggestion as well.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Renee said. I'm also a member of LOMA, with the Lincoln Omaha Municipal Alliance. So with the bus that we are aspiring to be able to create, we would be partnering with Omaha, so it wouldn't just be Lincoln shouldering the burden of that debt. And then obviously we're going to have to partner with a lot of other entities along the way. But when it comes to the efficacy of StarTran, as somebody who was a homeless person for a while, as somebody who was a single mother for a while, these are services that I had to use on a regular basis. I mean, for a while in my youth, I was emancipated at 17 and I was homeless. So I slept on buses. I slept on park benches. And when we tore down the Golds building and we decimated the bus stop, that's not just a bus stop. That is a home for a lot of people. And I think that we need to be very mindful about when we're talking about the efficacy of StarTran. It's not optional for a lot of people. And as we were talking about climate and everything else, we might not have an option either. We might be a car-cultured society that absolutely loves driving our big rigs, but when the cost of your house is skyrocketing and the cost of every version of insurance is also skyrocketing, a lot of people are going to be relegated to the public transit system. So it's going to be our job during our time in office to come up with very actionable solutions to these problems before they become more than what we can handle.
Well, we're running close on time, and I'm going to start the next question with you, sir. What are your climate action priorities for Lincoln in the next 4 years? For example, developing renewable energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, minimizing adverse impacts on disadvantaged individuals and communities, or something else? So what are your climate action priorities in Lincoln for the next 4 years?
Thank you, Randy. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a climate action plan. One of the big things on my list is going through the plan and sharing that with the community and finding things. Mostly we as the city have done things that the city can do to city buildings, city infrastructure. We're working on modernizing the fleet, moving to electric vehicles where we can. We do have natural gas buses, electric buses. We're going to do some of our service vehicles that way. The Public Building Commission, and I sit on something called the District Energy Commission. We're talking about solar panels on garages and buildings. We're having conversations about that. Those are things the city can do as an institution. I want to work on things in the climate action plan that can bring the community in. What are the things the community can do? I have conversations with people in the community, and a couple years ago, a couple of friends in the room said, have you thought about heat pumps? And we developed a heat pump plan with the input of the community. I was able to take an idea forward, and with a public-private partnership, we were able to incentivize people replacing their dying electric heat pumps, central heating units, with heat pumps. I think there are more options like that. The city is giving money to incentivize and help defray the cost. The business community loved it. I was a little bit surprised by that, but they thought it was a great idea, and they're steering into it. It creates jobs, puts money back into the economy. It helps lower our carbon footprint. I look forward to doing more things like that.
As I mentioned previously, one of the good things that we're doing is the Blessed Road Landfill Waste Emissions Project. That is a start. Continuing to educate people on the fact that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Continue to educate people and make them understand that Lincoln's heat index is increasing, which is going to put a lot of pressure on our soil contamination, going to put a lot of pressure on our irrigation system, and in return, it's going to put a lot of pressure on our water resources. So we have to just continue to educate people and do best management practices to protect our environmental issues and understand if you don't believe in climate change, and Monday we're at 80 degrees, Tuesday we're at 70, and then Wednesday we are in a winter storm. So it's crazy, it's real, and we have to be cognizant and respectful of it.
In the next 4 years, I'd like to pick up and continue a couple of projects that I started. Coming out of the Wilderness Crossing project, I said that we really did need to take a bigger look at the entire watershed and how development within that watershed was going to impact Salt Creek. That project has just gotten underway. We're about 40% into that project. I really want to finish that project so that we can turn around and look at Wilderness Park and say, does this park need to grow? Are there more places that need to be protected with easements or whatever in order to protect the Wilderness Park that we have today? So that might mean the Wilderness Park, maybe I'm going to come forward with a proposal to expand Wilderness Park. But I certainly am going to look at how we can manage the watershed, development within the watershed. We know we're going to develop, but as the land use changes, we need to pay attention to what it's doing at the base of the bottom of the basin. I also am trying to, I would like to continue working with heat islands, and these are things that are connected. Heat islands, socioeconomic, low-income neighborhoods, children being able to pass the PACER at 8th grade and having a level of fitness that means that their health is going to stay at a good level so that we don't have increasing health care costs. All of these things go with community and urban forestry, and so I'm really going to be looking for dollars that can go into urban forestry so that we can reduce, we can be more resilient around the increasing temperatures we're going to have in Lincoln.
As a Lincoln move forward with the climate action goal, we should focus on expanding renewable energy adoption to encouraging more solar and wind project in partnership with Lincoln Electric System, LES. So one thing I want to mention here, actually, I went back home last year. So what they're doing there is a lot of solar system people doing individually. All house, they have a solar system. So because they make a lot of energy, so they sell to city government. And then this one can be is a purchase for other houses and very cheap prices. So that's we can do here too. If we have a, rich people or something, they have a bigger solar system, they can sell to LES, and LES can, sell to very low price to other people. That is one thing I want to mention. And second, expanding a renewable energy adoption to encourage more solar. Okay, this one I done. Etching green instruction to improve stormwater management and reduce heat island in urban area. And third one, electrify public transportation and city fleets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from municipal operations. And fourth one, strengthening building infection standard to lower energy use in new and existing development. Thank you.
In the next 4 years, I think we have a lot of opportunities in front of us. I think now, because we're in an inflationary period of time, we have opportunities to speak directly with our business community and say, hey, do you want an audit of your system right now? And let's see what we can do to not only lower your costs, but lower your consumption as well. Those audits occur today, but we need to supercharge them and superpower them. Additionally, Council Chair Washington and I both sit on the Public Building Commission, where we have recently started to work on putting out reports on reduced energy consumption within our municipal buildings by implementing additional techniques to monitor our usage. And we're happily working to share those results so that people can look and see how efficient and what the return on investment is on these projects. I would love to explore further implementation of solar on municipal buildings as well. That's one area that we have not moved into. And then I think, not to necessarily dig into the issue, but I think we need to make sure that we continue to expect our partners at Lincoln Electric System to help lead the charge on making sure that electrification continues in this community and that we continue to move in that direction as well.
I totally forgot what the question was, so I've just been hearing people give ideas. Can I hear that again?
What are your climate action priorities for Lincoln in the next 4 years?
Gotcha.
Could be developing renewable energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, minimizing adverse impacts on disadvantage, and so forth.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any strict focus. I mean, it all sounds great. When I was reading the action plan, a lot of it was things that I was really positive about and happy to see that we were implementing these things. The one thing I mentioned in another forum that I did not really see much of was wind. And I'm not really big on the big windmills that are around. A lot of farmers have their own opinions about those, but I have seen in other cities where they've implemented smaller windmills that are vertical, and they usually keep them alongside roadsides. So as semis and everything is driving by them, they also get that spin and turn. I kind of think that might be an interesting thing for us to maybe look forward to implementing. If we're going to be building a belt ramp to go on the east side of Lincoln to connect south side to I-80, maybe that could be a section where we start and then start implementing it down I-80 and then down 77 as well. And then as far as the gas emissions, I think those are both great options, and I'd love to see that take hold. If anything, I think the education around such stuff should be focused in a manner sort of like the JATC, where we're training the individuals, and it would be a union project, a union service, where those workers there are unionized and they have a say in how they govern themselves in their workplace. But yeah, I think we're on a great path. I'm all for solar as well. So those would be things I would like to see happen and continue progressing towards.
Again, as I've mentioned, my top priority is going to be the human cost of what climate change is going to be happening. So I would be a person that would be opposed to tearing down the trees on Goodhue. I would be a person that was opposed to shutting down, to transforming the Woods Park area. I would have been opposed to having the Google Center take up 500 acres of our land. I don't believe that that center is going to employ people long term. I think it's going to be an automated center. And I think that environmentally it's going to grievously negatively impact our city. We talked about the watershed. We talked about water pollutants. I think that as we decide as a city to grow forward, we really need to be very mindful about how, where, and why we're growing. Are we growing because we need to? We talk a lot about affordable and low-income housing, but Bill Gates owns a third of Nebraska's farmland. Like when we have multi-million-dollar and multi-billion-dollar hedge funds and investors owning all of our property and land and being the ones that are in charge of all the developments, where are our checks and balances there? Where are the things that say that there is a blockade and enough is enough? Because it's not me riding a private jet and causing a whole bunch of emissions. That would be Pillin. It's not me, out here using our resources and dedicating our resources to things that will hurt us.
Okay, so I have little notes everywhere. one of the things that I love doing is getting people involved and excited about whatever it is that we're involved and excited about. And so, you know, we all have our habits today as adults. Where does that where does that other energy come from? Well, it comes from kids. Educating kids, getting kids involved, getting involved with the high schools, okay, the elementary schools. I remember doing projects with the little bean plants. Get them to do something. Science fair projects. I mean, they come up with the most creative stuff. And that's because their ideas are not bound by anything. Explore that talent. Explore that drive. Some of the incentives I mentioned, and then plus some. You know, I came from a place where my entire family had between 4 and 6 p.m. to take showers. My daughter's in the shower for an hour. I don't know what she's doing in there. No idea. She leaves her room, she leaves the lights on. It's like I'm walking around turning all the lights off. Teaching kids to be more responsible. Rely on community efforts. I can't grow anything to save my life. I'll be asking y'all for tomatoes. But I can educate. I can create an educational program to deliver it to various age groups. So I think we just have to, one of the things that we can do is rely within the community for that talent. And I'm told to stop talking.
Thank you. Well, that's the time that we have for response to questions this evening. And as we conclude, we're going to give each candidate 90 seconds or so to kind of present some final comments, summarize what they've talked about. And so I'm going to begin at the other end of the alphabet and have you begin by summarizing and concluding. Zeb?
Okay, again, you know, we need more to do this kind of meeting in, you know, what is our concern with city, because unfortunately, whenever people got elected, they disconnect with the public. This is I notice, even I try to talk to these people, and some respond my email, some don't. So we need to do more this kind of events so we can have a understanding what people need and what happening with city, and then we can, you know, fix this problem. If we don't know what problem we have in especially immigrant community, and then we can't fix it. So, you know, again, you know, I try to invite some leader to our holiday party, but some show mostly they deny to come. And this is unfortunately making me think these people keep saying we are leader for all Lincoln, but they are not. They lie by self. So they have to encourage with other community. Like right now we have a 200 family from Afghanistan, they move here in Nebraska. And lot of in Lincoln, lot of in Omaha. So I deal with these people too, and we have a lot of Iraqi, Sudanese, lot of African, even some I meet people here from Bosnian, European. We have a lot. Sorry, my time is up.
Thank you.
Since it's my last 90 seconds, I'll stand. Not forever, but there's so much opportunity in Lincoln to keep doing good stuff. There's so many things that make a city work together, and so it's hard to say that this is going to be my absolute top, and this is my absolute top, and this is my absolute top. I know it doesn't work that way. There are a whole lot of things in front of us, and I know that public health and safety are critically important. I know that growth in this community, making it sound, smart growth, not rapid sprawl, is really important. I know that protecting the things that make Lincoln wonderful is important, like our parks, our trails, our libraries, and that takes energy and that takes money. And I know that there's this desperate need for us to pay attention to people's pocketbooks. We have been lowering the levy every year. And sometimes you don't feel it because your assessment goes up. But we're doing what we can, and we're trying to take the collective money that we have to work with and make good choices, but we need everyone's input to do so. I've never thought that the pie was too small or the table was too small. I think we can make everything, the table bigger. We can bring more people to the table, and so I ask you to consider me for another term on the Lincoln City Council.
I originally came here from Indiana. I came to Nebraska on a basketball scholarship, and I fell in love with Lincoln. I'm a grandpa now. I have a 2-year-old, and I didn't know my body could move that fast anymore. But I want to bring leadership and innovative solutions to some of our growing problems. I want to bring transparency and fiscal responsibility. I want us to start using our tax dollars for purposes intended. We have 229,000 registered vehicles here in Lincoln, which should generate $5.9 million for roads, $2.7 million for residential streets, and $8.4 million per year for maintenance operations. So our roads should, over the last 20 years, should be in better condition than what they are today. And there's so much more that we can do, and that's been the theme of my campaign. I'm going to work hard. Like I said, I'm so passionate about returning because I have a lot of solutions to improve the quality of life for our citizens and be a steward of your tax dollars. I pray, if God willing to return, I'll be ready to go day one, and you can count on me to always have my ear to the ground and my finger on the pulse and move the city progressively forward with fiscal responsibility and be a steward of your tax dollars. Thank you.
I have a list, and some of you have seen my list. When I'm in the community, hanging out, going to community meetings, neighborhood association meetings, farmers markets, whenever there's 5 or 6 people gathered together, I stop and say, hey, how you doing? Chance to make new friends. My list has 35 items on it that people have told me were important to them. And about 15 of them are climate related or climate specific. But they're all related. They're all related. There's something that one of your neighbors said was important to them. And as a city council person, I take it back to my fellow council people and say, this is what is important to this person. Are we doing this? Are we thinking about this? Have we done it before? Do we have a plan to talk about it? That's what I want to do for the next 4 years for you. Some of those things will be climate related. Some of those things will be buses and transportation. Some of them will be housing. Number 7 on the list is water. Water for drinking, water for flooding, watering trees are on the list. We live in a great community. Together, we can do wonderful things. My colleague here says there's more we can do, and I agree with him. There's more we can do. I'd like to be a part of doing that more for you. Thank you.
So much of my adulthood has been in human service, and so I see this as an extension of that. I see this as a way to serve my community in a different way, and I have a very unique perspective on policies, procedures, government because of what I've been through. My goal is to make sure that people are heard and that they're active participants in the decision-making process of the city, because where I'm from, you don't have a chance. You don't have an opportunity to talk to your leaders. They make decisions and you better like it or else. My diverse background in education, healthcare, and small business ownership make me qualified for this position. I'm consistent. My actions match my words. People who know me know exactly what I'm going to say and when I'm going to say it. I live out my platform every day. I keep promises. I never make a promise I can't keep. I embrace respectful conversations and hard conversations. My campaign, the Lincoln Up campaign, encourages people to show up, stand up, and speak up. This is coming from a functional introvert. I aim to bring people together and develop mutually agreed upon plans for various issues. I would love to move the city council meetings to later in the day so people who work a 9 to 5 can come to the city council meetings and actually have a say of what's happening in the city council or in the city. They have an opportunity to talk to their leadership. I aim to be the voice of reason and common sense, and I would love to have your vote on April 8th and again on May 6th.
Hi. I guess this is my last 90 seconds. So I'm going to lead off with, if you've seen me like messing with this little thing in my hand, I crochet. And I made this. They're hedgehogs. We make them to, one of my friends makes them and puts them up at Mana Games, and the proceeds go towards mutual aid efforts. So if you want to look at it afterwards, you can see my little guy. I guess the thing I want to leave you with is that I'm a regular person. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm not a politician. In fact, you can count on me to say the things that politicians most likely don't want people to say. I've been going to city council meetings with me and a group for a year, asking the people that are currently sitting on the city council to say free Palestine. It is a Lincoln issue. General Dynamics, thank you. It is a Lincoln issue. General Dynamics is on 27th and Superior. We have a hand in the genocides that are happening in Palestine, in Sudan, in Congo. Right now, there are 27 active genocides that are going on globally. And we are complicit because we do have death tools that are made in our city. People don't want to talk about that, but that's okay because I will. So if people come up to me with uncomfortable conversation topics, I am the candidate that will be guaranteed to bring your uncomfortable conversation topic to everybody else so that we talk about it. Regardless of public opinion, regardless of emotion, the facts are the facts, and I will be that transparent piece that brings some accountability to this office. Thank you.
Again, Renee Carrillo, my partner from the Lincoln Omaha Municipal Alliance. She is the more real of the duo here. I try to stay a little more hopeful and lighthearted, but I do agree it is a problem. We have a crosshairs on Lincoln. Heaven forbid something were to happen, that would be a target. I don't want to leave on that note, but I also am just a regular working person. I don't own any property. I've never started my own business, although I've thought about it as an electrician, maybe opening up my own business. But I do see and speak with the people a lot of the time. I teach at the JATC, so I know a lot of the youth that are coming up in the electrical field. In my involvement with Lincoln DSA, and again, that's Democratic Socialists of America, Democratic being of the people, Socialist being for the people. That's what I want to focus my efforts on, and I will continue to focus my efforts on. Win or lose this election, I'm going to be doing what I can for the people of Lincoln and for the community around Lincoln. So I hope I get your vote April 8th and again on May 6th.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for coming out today and speaking with all of us. It really warms my heart to see everyone out here today. 4 years ago, as we were campaigning for Lincoln City Council, there was an issue that came up before us. It was the Climate Action Plan. I was a planning commissioner at that point in time. Sandra and Benny were city council members at that point in time, and we all voted for it, along with Councilman James Michael Bowers over there as well. Since that point in time, we've worked as a team to implement new flood regulations. Sandra's Salt Creek watershed study. Benny's done extensive work with the heat pump regulation programs. I've introduced and passed parking lot minimum removal so that we can reduce the size of parking lots and reduce runoff in parking lots as well. I think we have a pretty good team, is what I'm saying. I've had the privilege of working with members of the Lincoln City Council, and I would love to be able to work not only in my capacity, but with those two individuals as well moving forward. I think we have probably the greenest Lincoln City Council that we've ever had, and we would like to continue down that path. So with that, we surely ask for your vote. I ask for your vote. I think we will be around afterwards to talk with people as well, and we'd love to do so. So thanks again for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Well, as Tom said, though, this is the end of our formal part of the program. There are some cookies somewhere around here. Everybody's wanting cookie monster back here. First of all, I want to say thank you to the 8 people that took their time to be here tonight. You know, it says a lot that we have people that want to serve us and helping administer our city, and I really appreciate that. And second, there are 12 organizations that sponsored this event. Those that are part of those organizations, put your hands up so we can spot you. Let's give them a round of applause. And they're listed on your program. And finally, it says a great deal that you folks took your time to come out tonight. I know we don't have a snowstorm tonight. We had that last night, so you'd be sure to come out tonight because you were housebound and ready to be out. But also, for those of you watching online, thank you for tuning in. And I wish you all well. And just remember, vote on April 8th and again on May 6th. And that's the conclusion of our program. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good to meet you, Jerry. I'm from Evansville. Yeah.
Oh, you bet.
Thank you, sir. Almost in Kentucky.